Realize it is so easy to focus on the negative things, and what this letter the Apostle Paul was talking about is focusing on all the beauty of God's people coming before him in worship, and just how strong and prevalent that is around the world today, including in the United States. And there are some church hurt situations, there are some difficult situations, but the vast majority of believers are just trying to come before God in sincerity. And it just, to focus on the encouragement, I guess, is my thing right now.
You know, that's such a good word, because often, because everybody has a microphone and everybody basically has a platform these days, the hurt people may be shouting the loudest right now. There's just masses of people that are ministered to by the church. It's their community. It's where they found healing, that aren't going to hop behind a microphone and talk about that. And yet we know that's happening, and especially if you have the chance to travel around and visit different churches and you meet Christians you've never met before who've been walking with God a long time, you resonate with them. You realize, I feel like I've known you forever, because you've known Jesus and they know Jesus, and there's just something that's so beautiful about that. So friend, if you are tempted to look at everything that's wrong, my pastor calls that theater religion, where we stand or sit in the seats in the bleachers and we become a consumer. But if you can come down on the field and be part of what God is doing in the world today, and be part of the solution, roll up your sleeves, and then look around to say, wow, I get to be in a community of believers. I get to walk with God with these friends. There's more right than there is wrong, because Jesus is coming for his bride. He doesn't give us the option to say, I love Jesus, but it's his people I can't stand. He doesn't give us that option. We are his bride. So let's be part of the solution, and then count our blessings, because as Shanti said, there's more right than there is wrong. Well, what a good word, Shanti. Thank you so much for that. Well, let's talk about your book, When Hurting People Come to Church, how people of faith can help solve the mental health crisis. And friends, if you want in on the drawing, you can text the word book to 877-933-2484. And I want to take an informal poll. If you or someone you love and know is dealing with a mental health issue, type yes or no in the text line. And every answer will be anonymous, but I'm willing to guess pretty much every answer will be yes. So it'll be a rare thing to find a no. But if you or someone you know is dealing with some mental health issue in some way, shape, or form, text me and let me know, 877-933-2484. So Shanti, you're a researcher. So you don't go off of feelings or stories you've heard. You actually research the data and you look at it. So what are you seeing with the growing mental health crisis?
It's pretty overwhelming, actually, and it's overwhelming the people who care the most and want to be part of the solution, which is, pastors, church leaders, counselors, the folks who want to step in and help. And here's some numbers to let you all know kind of the size of this. Right now, according to government statistics, almost 60 million people have been diagnosed with a mental illness of some kind. That doesn't even include people who just are dealing with general anxiety, or they have marriage issues or whatever. So 60 million U.S. adults, and half of them, 30 million, are not actually getting help for that pain. And it's all sorts of reasons. Like right now, any church that it refers people out to a counselor knows the feeling of, well, I'm so sorry, I wish we could help you right away, but that's going to be 4 or 5 weeks. Like, everybody knows that feeling of that wait list issue. And that process also impacts the pastor. Like, hey, pastor, can I come see you? And the pastor's like, I want to help this person, but I have a line of 30 other people out the door. And so that right there is kind of the hallmark of the way things are working today. Sometimes it's just literally somebody might love to get help from a counselor, but they just can't afford it. That's a big deal today. So many counselors aren't taking insurance, and you pay out of pocket, and so maybe you can go a couple of times. But it's definitely not the process that it used to be. And so that's really, to get us started, is recognizing there's just a lot of hurting people out there right now.
Boy, and this is probably for another show, and I doubt I'll circle back to it, but still, I saw it coming. I knew that things were escalating before COVID, but I have to say, the way COVID was managed, and to have a death ticker on our TVs every day, is not what people needed. And to get perpetual videos of this, I mean, just really so much fear, perpetuation, and then isolation when truly we need each other. There's you know what I'm saying? And looking back, I hear many experts say, oh, would we have done this differently? But what's done is done. But you can sure see when people are in fear, in isolation, their stuff is going to surface and escalate. But here we are, and yet God is with us, and He's not abandoned His church, and we are the church, so we've got to know how to walk this out. Is there anything else that you see that you can point to that would be the reason for the escalation you're seeing?
Well, no, that's one of them. Now, it is, a lot of people assume it's really because of the pandemic. The numbers actually started getting really bad way before the pandemic. This has been accelerating for the last couple of decades. It's just the pandemic was like gasoline on a flame, right? And especially with the isolation. The Surgeon General issued a report a couple of years ago that was talking about the epidemic of loneliness. That has just become such an issue for so many people, and the impact of loneliness, the health of the day.
Wow.
It's just insane how horribly it impacts not just our mental state, but our physical state, and of course our emotional state. And so those, just so you know, those kinds of numbers, which, by the way, I should also say, because there's a lot of people listening to this who care about our youth, and right now the adolescents in the United States have basically the same kind of ratio, the same kind of numbers as the adults, where it's just pretty overwhelming, and only about half are getting any kind of help. And so that is our starting point of, okay, we have this crisis in front of us, and you know what? We also have the hope of Jesus Christ. And how can we step in to this moment as the church and say, we have always cared for people. And in the last maybe 30 years, 40 years, we've gotten this idea that, our job should be to refer out, to counselors, which is great. Like my co-author on the book is a clinical psychologist who's trained counselors for 30 years at Regent University. So we're fans of the mental health profession. It's just that there aren't enough counselors to meet the demand. There aren't enough pastors to meet the demand by a lot. When you have 30 million people standing outside the clinician's door on waiting lists. And so what we're saying is, hey, how about the church and the people in the church step into this space just as lay people to walk alongside basic needs?
I brought my sister on the show a few weeks back, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, but I bought her a little bracelet last Christmas and put Heart Healer on it, because that's what she is, and that's what she does. And she volunteers her time, and it's got appointments constantly with people, walking them through their story, helping them to meet Jesus in that story. And what God has done through her is just mind-boggling. And as I'm looking at your book, I texted her, I'm like, you're doing this, and yet we need many, many more of you, because there just aren't enough hours in the day or people right now to minister to all the needs. And one thing, Shaunti, we cover on the show a lot is healing, is health, wholeness, inner healing, all of those things. Because, as they say, hurt people, and heal people, heal people. Before we go to break, say a word about just tending to our own souls in a healthy way, so we're in a position to be able to help people. Not that you have to be perfect. In fact, you even said you don't have to be a licensed counselor to love people well. So we'll kind of talk about that on the other side of the break, all the buts. But there is something to be said about, if you can be healthy, if you can tend to your soul, you'll be in much better shape to help others as well.
Oh, absolutely. And think of all the people listening to this who are the type when, let's just say that a friend's parent passes away. And, they're sad. Of course you'd be sad. Anyone would be sad. And you're the type of person that when that friend, their parent passes away, they call you and says, can we get together for coffee? Like right there, you're stepping into somebody's pain. You are the type of person that others reach out to. And so what we're trying to do is cast a vision to say the church is filled with people who love one another and want to be part of that solution. They just didn't think that it was an option before. And so, yes, one of the things we encourage is please take care of yourself and be prayed up, be reading the Word so that you can step into those moments and know that you're, as best you can, that you are walking alongside someone in the way Jesus would want.
Talking to Shaunti Feldhahn today, and her book is When Hurting People Come to Church, How People of Faith Can Help Solve the Mental Health Crisis. When we come back, we'll look at 5 churches that are doing it well. We won't give their names out, but just their basic scenarios of ways they're creatively addressing it. And even though you might not be a church leader, maybe you are, but for us to personalize this, to say, how can we maybe step in to the gap and help people heal? We'll figure that out on the other side. We've got a handful of copies to give away today. Text the word book if you want in on the drawing, 877-933-2484. We'll be back in a minute.
90.7 and 97.5, the Twin Cities Faith Radio.
His heart was heavy and his stomach tight. Nehemiah stood before the Persian king. His people, the Israelites, were returning to ruins, and the king could help. But would he? Nehemiah spoke, trusting God with the outcome, and the king responded, opening the way for rebuilding and restoration. Nehemiah took the next right step, trusting God. What's the next step God is calling you to? Connecting faith to life. Faith Radio.
When hard things happen, if you're feeling all alone, we're just a call or text away at 877-933-2484. Searching for answers, we're just a call or text away at 877-933-2484. If you have a story about how God is using Faith Radio in your life, or a question, comment, or concern, we're just a call or text away at 877-933-2484. Connecting faith to life. Faith Radio.
As an adult, it can be hard to remember what life was like as a teen. Stacey Thacker is here to remind us it's not easy.
I've looked at what the world does to our girls these days and how it will chew her up and spit her back out, like it will. It's hard to be a girl.
Praying for teen girls. Next time on Family Life Today with Dave and Ann Wilson.
Mornings at 10:30 and evenings at 7 on Faith Radio.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Susie Larson Live, talking to Shaunti Feldhahn. She's a social researcher, best-selling author, and speaker. In her book, she co-wrote with Dr. James Sells, When Hurting People Come to Church, How People of Faith Can Help Solve the Mental Health Crisis. We got a handful of copies to give away today. If you want to text the word book to get in on the drawing, 877-933-2484. And I got to tell you, at the open of the show, I said, just took an informal poll. Everybody's anonymous, but I said, are you or someone you love battling a mental health crisis? Not one no came in. So are you personally dealing with a mental health crisis, or do you know someone you know and love? Yes, 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 just as I suspected. And Shaunti, in the book, you have a chapter titled 5 Churches That Are Doing It Well. I'm going to just take them one at a time. So the first one is a rural church that has a vibrant Friday night ministry. Talk about that one.
Yeah. This is something that I think many churches don't think of as being a potential approach to help around mental and emotional health, but it is. Recovery programs, especially those that are not just about drugs and alcohol, but anything, hurts, habits, and hang-ups. There's Celebrate Recovery, there's Regeneration, there's Recovery Alive, there's a bunch of these different models. And this particular church, I loved talking to this pastor, basically said, we have to do something. This is often because someone said we have to do something. And so he hired a licensed clinical social worker, so a licensed therapist, basically, for a few hours a week. Hey, we're just going to pay you part-time for a few hours a week. You was somebody in the congregation. Would you be willing to just see whether you could start raising up a layer of lay counselors in the church? And so this person, he developed his own program, and it's very robust. He has people going through a training that's like 11 weeks long, and they have to be accepted. It's not like, hey, you went through the training, so you're definitely a lay counselor. You know, he invites people in, and then once a month they get together for supervision. And he basically says, you know, consistent with confidentiality, keep confidences, but does anybody have any questions? Are there people that you're working with that, you know, you just don't know exactly what to do? Is there any issues? Are there issues that need to be escalated from lay counseling to professional mental health, trained, licensed counseling? And so it's a way of hand-holding people at a slightly higher level. And this one church, for example, in the last number of years has gone from 2 or 3 lay counselors who are kind of stepping in and trying it to they now have 40 lay counselors. And they have thousands of hours a year of helping people, not just in the church, but now people in the community who are coming and saying, I need help. And everybody's like, yes, you do. And you need hope. And we can give you both.
Wow. Well, this dear one, right? 10 years ago, a family in my church lost the mom to breast cancer when her daughters were 14 and 18. I'd lost my mom by that time. I was 35, not a teenager, however. I had a friend who had a similar loss. I asked her how I could come alongside the 18-year-old daughter, who I knew a little from youth group. My friend gave me great advice. Fast forward to the 18-year-old girl now married, struggling to get pregnant. Knowing I had gone through infertility, she reached out to get together, which we did. It feels like starting out with our own stories may be a place to start and working towards coming alongside people, especially if you feel like, what do I have to offer? I'd love to hear what Shanti thinks. I think that's brilliant. What do you think?
Oh, that's just beautiful. Absolutely. And one of the things I should say directly is that what we did in order to get these stories and in order to sort of understand what's the situation in the church, what are the needs today, what can the church do, we spent the last 2 years interviewing and surveying more than 2,000 pastors and church leaders and clinicians, all streams of the church, in order to understand what is it that works best. And what that dear lady is saying is exactly what works best. Whatever the process is, it's making a system for people to walk alongside one another, which is 2,000 years we've been doing that. It's only in the last 30 years that we've started to think, I should only refer to professional counseling. How about we do both?
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at 5 churches that are doing it well, and we're not giving the names of these churches, but you're just looking at creative solutions. So we talked about the Rural Church. It's got a vibrant Friday night ministry that grew in to the size of the actual church. You got a large church with a licensed clinical social worker, so that pastor prioritized the mental health of the congregation, brought him on part-time. So could you see if you could raise up some lay counselors? And he still oversees, he still helps train. That's amazing. Okay, a small church with a small budget. They got creative with resources. What happened there?
I loved talking to this pastor. I've talked to him multiple times, and it's a small little church. It's probably about 100 people, sometimes less, maybe sometimes a little bit more. So like probably the majority of churches in the country, right? They don't have a ton of resources. And so what this pastor basically said is, you know, we need to start building partnerships in the community. And we need to look at what are the resources that are already out there, because you know, people in the congregation have those needs, and we're not going to be able to raise up, you know, lay counselors in the church in maybe quite the same way. So what can we do? And so it was fascinating to watch him get so creative about, okay, first of all, how do we make this not a stigma, right? How do we say, no matter what, you can come here and say, I'm dealing with these issues. And so they really put some effort into that of saying, like, he would preach from the pulpit, you know, talking about the need to be transparent and to come alongside one another and trust one another in community. And then he also had this effort of, okay, like, where could we connect people to get resources where the counselors are full? And so, for example, he said, all right, let's build some partnerships with, like, the local hospital. And so, if there's a parent, like one of the examples he gave was he said he had some parents whose child was dealing with really significant psychiatric issues and some other like learning issues like ADHD. And so he's like, I know I don't have the specialty for that. Nobody in the church is going to have the specialty for that. And so how about I just call my friend that I've now partnered with at the Children's Hospital to say, can I just ask you a question? I'm walking alongside them. Here's what I think I should say. Is this appropriate? And, the doctor emails back and says, yeah, how about just add this one little thing? And so the pastor is able to do what he needs to do, but with a little bit of extra help from outside. That kind of model, there's so many resources in the community for these smaller churches. Many churches, including this one, partnered with other churches. So they would say, okay, there's 5 other small churches in our area. How about we come together and we put on an event to say, let's bring a clinician in and teach on anxiety. And they had hundreds of people there. But it was because they were able to partner together and share resources. So I loved that example because I love it when the body of Christ comes together and kind of drops the walls.
Wow. When we come back, we'll talk about 2 other churches that are doing it well. And I confess, Shanti, we'll talk about it on the other side. One of them, I did not love their approach so much. So I know you'll have answers for me and I'll have some questions about it. But we're talking about when hurting people come to church and how people of faith can help heal people heal. And we really do need to be so attentive to those who are hurting. Now, we're not called to all people, but we may be called to walk with a few or maybe one, and God will give us what we need. And then how do you know when you're in over your head? We'll talk about that on the other side. How do you know when to refer someone to someone with training? We'll talk about that on the other side. Again, Shanti's my guest today. When Hurting People Come to Church is her book, and we will be back in just a moment.
Streaming and binging your favorite shows is only for TV. Well, not anymore. With Faith Radio Podcast, you can listen to what you want to hear when you have the time to hear it. Or you can hear it again and share with your friends and family. You can rewind it, even save it, or get an alert when there's a new episode. Find Faith Radio Podcast with the free Faith Radio app wherever you get your podcasts or at myfaithradio.com.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership and grow deeper in your faith? University of Northwestern St. Paul offers a Master's of Ministry Leadership designed to help you expand your impact for Christ. Learn from expert faculty who are actively serving in ministry today. Choose from 6 unique concentrations and enjoy courses optimized for your busy schedule. It's flexible, practical, and purpose-driven, preparing you to lead with confidence. Discover more at unw.edu/MAML.
Here's Pastor Mark Jobe with a Bold Steps Minute.
Some of you have been around Christianity for several years now, but you have never left the foyer, the entrance of Christianity. This is your season. This is the voice of the Spirit of God speaking into your life and pushing you. Go beyond the entrance. Don't get stuck in the foyer. This is a time to learn how to pray more intensely and enter into the presence of God.